Thank you for joining us on Student Docs. I'm your host, Carole Adrienne, and I too am a documentary filmmaker. Today, we usually address the program to students, but if we have anyone in the audience who is a post-student adult, we hope these will be good tips and tricks to use when you're making your own documentary or recording your family histories. So, I want to welcome all new and emerging filmmakers. You have chosen a very interesting path at the intersection of art and journalism. It is a path of great opportunity and great responsibility. You are the voices of our future and the chroniclers of our past. So you're going to bring us the truth. Sometimes you're going to make us laugh. You're going to educate us about things. Sometimes you'll make us cry, and sometimes you're going to change our minds about important things. I want to talk about the wisdom that is going to be imparted herein, and this list is a credits list. Sometimes it's called a thank you. On every project that you do, you're going to have a list of your wise people who helped with it. And this is my list of people who helped me with this particular presentation. I greatly value their opinions and their input, and I'm really grateful to have them. So sometimes you're going to have a list at the end where everybody is assigned. You'll see who did sound, who was the editor, and sometimes it's going to be a more informal list like this one. But these people are going to be your greatest assets. So your best friends in documentary filmmaking. Well, your phone and your computer give you a really good TV and film studio. You can do so much with those tools. We've had students on who shot an entire film on their phone and edited with free software that they downloaded from the internet. Google is really your friend, and we're going to talk less about specific web addresses than we are about how to search certain things. And again, your contacts, like the people in my list that we saw a minute ago, biggest assets you could have. So what kind of resources are available to students and new documentary filmmakers? The library is an amazing resource. Philadelphia and Pennsylvania really have an extraordinary library system. And one in particular I want to mention. One thing COVID has given us is greater range of remote learning and working. So a lot of these things are available to you digitally. The Philadelphia Library, the Parkway Central branch, has a department called BRIC, B-R-I-C, Business Resource Innovation Center. And if you're a filmmaker and you're seeking grant funding, this is your place. They have subscription databases and will teach you how to search for grants applicable to the project you're working on. They have support systems, business encouragement panels. It's a terrific resource, BRIC. We have public access cable stations like this one, which air unusual and alternative work. Some of the larger ones have facilities where you can take classes. Film offices. Most big cities will have a film office. In our area, it's the Greater Philadelphia Film Office, and it serves two main functions. One, they bring large crews in from Hollywood to shoot feature films here and episodic TV shows. The other part of it is support for independent filmmakers, and it again is a fantastic resource. They can serve as your fiscal sponsor, making you eligible for grant funding. They do panels and innovative ways of helping you get your film made. Check out public television stations. Our local one, WHYY, Channel 12, has a youth media center. There's plenty you can learn online. You probably know this better than I do. And you might want to think about internships at production houses. Many of them are unpaid, but it is valuable experience you will never regret. When I graduated college, I did an internship at Center City Film and Video, and it gave me the best picture. I was just learning stuff new every day. And the other thing to do is just start filming. Once you're in there, you're going to find out what works, what doesn't. You're going to realize you're good at some stuff, and whatever you don't know, Google. So how do we find support organizations that really are geared to student work? Google, you knew I was going to say that, but there are different ways to search. And after a number of different tries, I found that the term currently seems to be youth. So youth media literacy, youth filmmaking. Search under those with the location where you are, and you're going to find some amazing stuff. In America, there is support for young filmmakers all across the country. I Googled just for fun some major cities, and every single one had at least one organization that supports student-made films. So from New York to Atlanta to Salt Lake to Chicago, there is a ton of stuff out there. And again, because we are dealing digitally for a large part, there's going to be great stuff available to you. So take advantage of that. And when in doubt, YouTube will show you how to do anything. So pre-planning. When you set out to make a documentary, of course, you have to have a pretty good idea about what your story is and where it's going to go. But documentary is a funny edge of the cliff thing. And it really pays to keep a little Zen area of your brain open to allow for flexibility, because sometimes a story evolves during the process. And then you're going to have to make decisions about whether to follow that road or not. And hopefully you're going to be seeking the truth in your story throughout. So you're going to have to gauge on that. We've all seen documentaries, maybe even most documentaries are slanted. But if you're following your story in its true way, you'll know if the path is right. It may not be exactly what you planned on when you started, but it's going to be a better story. If you remember nothing else from this presentation, I hope that the next two slides will stick with you, because these are really important. You want to protect yourself and others. So be conscious of everything that's in your frame. You want to protect other people's privacy. As an example, if you're interviewing a subject who's sitting on their front porch and the number of the house is in the frame, you may want to either move your interviewee and the camera, or if that's not a possibility, blur that house number in post. The other thing to watch out for is, and you can't do this in a crowd, but one-on-one, we all have a zillion t-shirts. And after a while, we start to think of them as the blue shirt with the red printing. Well, graphic tees sometimes have four-letter words or disturbing comments. Make sure if you're interviewing somebody and the shirt is going to be inappropriate for television, let's change it, because blurring that in post, it's going to distract from your story and make people wonder what you're hiding. So when you are on location in public, take extra releases with you and definitely try to have signage. You are on camera. We are filming in this area from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. today. Let people know, and then hopefully you won't get too much traffic that you weren't inviting. And of course, be considerate of the neighborhoods where you shoot. Leave it clean, and make sure you're not shooting when schools or churches are letting out. When there are neighborhood events, one good thing to do if you're shooting in a private neighborhood, find out who the block captain is. Check in with them and make sure that you don't have a time when there are going to be tons of people converging on the area where you're shooting. So you can arrange for something that's kind to the neighborhood and kind to your project. Protection releases are your best protection for legally filming and legally broadcasting or posting your work. You want talent releases, talent personal for individuals, the people that you're interviewing, location releases for the place where you're shooting. If you're using voiceover, that's a separate release. And if you can get rights and clearances for your B-roll, that's a really good thing. If you're shooting a garden that you think you may slot in, and you're able to talk to the owner of the garden and get permission, that is really, really helpful. Now you can download release templates online. There's a wonderful selection, and it's a one-page document. You want to get people's permission, their official permission, to allow you to use their image and or their voice in your project. So you customize those templates with your production's name or your name. Just let me give you an example here of not having a release. Let's say you meet a wonderful man, he's 104. He's a war hero. He's a great talker. He has fantastic stories. You ask if you can interview him. He says yes. You have 2 blissful days of shooting, and you have footage that's golden. The sound is great. He's just a fascinating person. So you're then in edit a few weeks later, and you get a phone call from the war hero's grandson, and he says, unfortunately, my grandfather passed away. Now, hopefully, peacefully in his sleep, he was 104, but we don't want you to make a film about him, and we don't give you permission to use any footage or recordings of him. And if you don't have a release from that man originally, you are done, you are beat. You cannot legally do that. Someone can sue you. So it sounds like a pain, but if you make releases part of your regular kit, you really can't go wrong with that. And if you're shooting, say there's a really cute bodega and you want to interview your subject in front of there, well, you really do need the permission of the owners of that store. So go in, and this is kind of a backup technique. But if you ask if they'll give you permission on camera to shoot with the front of their store, and just get a quick clip where they say, I give you permission, and you are much safer than if you don't do that. If you need additional legal assistance, many cities have access to free or very low-cost production legal services. So you may need contracts, you may need something specialized. My advice is check the nearest university that has a law school, because many university law schools have free legal clinics. So you work with a 2nd or 3rd year law student who is overseen by faculty who are full-fledged attorneys, and they can help. Now, University Law School did all of my releases and contracts for the Civil War Medicine series I'm working on. There are also volunteer lawyers for the arts, which has offices in many cities, and they're terrific. And this is exactly what they're set up to do. In Philadelphia, we also have VIP and some other agencies. So a little bit of effective searching, and you can find some really good support for the legal issues that you have. I want to talk about doing interviews themselves. Now, our show, Student Docs, if you've seen it, each time we show a clip or a short documentary made by a student or students, and then I interview 1 or 2 students who produced or directed or wrote the piece. It really pays in that kind of a case to arrange pre-interviews, not pre-recorded, but what you want is for your subjects to get to know you a little bit, and you know them, get to know what to expect, to feel more relaxed with you when the camera is rolling. Being in front of a rolling camera it's a pretty vulnerable situation. So knowing what they're going to be talking about, or knowing that you're going to make it a comfortable situation for them, is going to give you much, much better footage. So schedule for their convenience. Make sure to express your appreciation for their participation in your project. And by all means, spell their names correctly. Now, on MLTV, when we shoot student docs, I always I interview our subjects 2 or 3 days before we tape the show. And before we do that interview, I email them a list of possible questions that I might ask them. How they found the story, what spoke to them, if they knew the outcome before they shot, and how they conducted their research. I love asking what some of their challenges were. Last spring, we had students from Rowan University. One group had made a documentary about a group of live performance artists. This was the drag queen community in Philadelphia, and it was as they started shooting, COVID hit. So the clubs and the theaters all closed down. Well, these filmmakers really had to do a quick 90-degree turn. And what they made was a piece that examined what happens with live performers when venues are closed. So it was very different from what they had started out hoping for, but they really made it work and they addressed a real problem. So I like to know how the experience changed the filmmakers, personally or professionally, and importantly, what they hope people are going to take away from their film, which is something we all really need to ask as we go along. What do I want people to see? What do I want them to feel? And one really important question that I ask every guest that we have is there something you would particularly like to discuss on air that you would like me to ask you about? And this really opens up for somebody to tell you what's in their heart of hearts about their film. And if you've ever been interviewed and sometimes you walk away from it and think, oh, I wish I had talked about X. Well, this is a way not only to avoid that as the person interviewing, but to give your subject a real chance to say what's super important to them about their film. We like to pay attention to solutions-based journalism. You want to, if at all possible, provide the audience with resources for change. So you're highlighting issues, but you also want to provide a way to make a difference, how to inspire that. Now you can show notes, you can list resources, encourage anybody that you're interviewing to feel positive about being part of a good cause and a good change. This is a sample. Let's say we have a documentary about stray and feral cat rescue. I just Googled that in the Philadelphia area, and there were so many organizations. So I pulled 5, and I thought, even if somebody sees this on the screen, they don't necessarily are going to grab a pencil and write these down, but they are going to say, wow, a lot of places deal with that problem. And so maybe they'll Google it themselves if they haven't made a note of it. But anything that you can think of that gives the audience a tool to participate in making positive change is a really good thing. I want to talk about, this is really important to me personally, music. Now, there may be a Post Malone song that perfectly embodies what you're saying in your documentary. Can you use it? No, no, no. You cannot take commercially available music and use it in a piece. It's not legal. It won't show on YouTube. You can't get it in a film festival. It's a really, really uncool thing to do. If you want to use the latest Blackpink recording, it's going to require thousands of dollars and many hours of lawyer time to set that up. So don't do it, because you really do have lots of other options. Now, if you use music from a private composer or a friend or your brother, make sure you get a release from that composer. You don't know what's going to happen down the line, and you really want to have their permission to leave that piece of original music attached to your project. It doesn't mean they can't use it somewhere else, but it means that they have allowed you to use it legally. Otherwise, use only copyright-free or royalty-free music. Now, there are websites online that do nothing but that. you will have thousands, tens of thousands of options to choose from, and you're going to find music that's going to work for you. There are two admonitions I have about using music. These are personal. You're free to disagree with me, but I see too much of wall-to-wall music. Now, I think music is such a powerful tool. When you want to emphasize something, you can crank it up. If you need a hush, you can take it way down. But when you have a piece that's just solid, wall-to-wall music at the same level, I feel that it really diminishes the power of your piece. And a second pet peeve of mine is, please moderate your music levels when someone is being interviewed. When your subject is speaking, their voice level and the music should not be at the same level. It confuses the brain. The important thing, presumably, is what your subject is saying. So take that music down if you're not phasing it out, but let their voice be the primary sound in that scene. So where can I air my documentary? How's it going to get out there? For students, there are youth film festivals, YouTube channels, again, public access cable, PBS affiliate youth programs, youth media award programs. There's lots of stuff out there. And film festivals, there are tons of film festivals. Now, some will have entry fees, but some are free. There are local ones and there are international ones that invite international application. So I will give you one online address for filmfreeway.com, which has a huge listing of festivals. So, and also, if you're a student, search youth film festivals or search youth diversity festivals. There's a wonderful selection. The first two listed on here are for African American based pieces. There are plenty of Latino film festivals. South Korea has the Busan International Kids and Youth Film Festival, to which Americans may apply. There's lots of stuff out there and ways to get your work seen. I want to say a little bit about working through COVID. We're in a really difficult place on our planet right now, so keep that in consideration. Don't let it hamper you, but keep it small. Be careful of your protocol. You want to do what's possible and be giving and considerate of others. Think about the world you're shooting in. Make affordable compromises to keep everyone safe. Now, you're going to have to make decisions about, probably with each separate shoot, how to handle masks, given they can mute voices. But if it's iffy, amp up your sound and let the masks be worn if you have the least bit of question about safety. So I want to say in closing that please bring us the truth. Please make us laugh, make us cry, shine a spotlight on things that are important for us to see and changes that need to be made, and put good music behind it all. Thank you so much. Please join us next time on Student Docs.